B-Leaguers, welcome to the B-Leagues Pick'em Show on behalf of Going4 2 Live and the UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code GF2 for 100% matching deposit up to 250 big ones. We're here to talk Thursday night props on a Wednesday. I know Jeff's kind of messing my schedule around. Thank you, Jeff. But make sure you stick around for after this show for the Armchair Fantasy Show with Jeff and Ryan covering everything from Fantasy Football Dynasty and DFS with whatever special guests they've got teed up. We're going to be launching this on Wednesdays now instead of Thursdays. Thank you, SEO. But we are going to talk 49ers and Seahawks, an interesting matchup considering the Seahawks just got slammed at home by this boys New York Giants. Thank you very much for coming. No dramas. I will also state for the fact that the Giants did go to Seattle a couple of years ago and run them down with Colt McCoy. That actually happened. So the Giants winning in Seattle, not an uncommon thing. Just putting it out there. Thanks for coming very much. And obviously San Fran losing at home to Arizona. That was a bit of a topsy-turvy game, which they probably should have had control over. Didn't really go for it. So this game here has major implications. Not complications. Well, maybe there are complications, but major implications for the NFC West. So to have a short turnaround week, San Fran have a few injuries, niggling injuries here or there. Seattle started to struggle to find some form after a hot start. Very interesting. But we're going to go with our pick three here. We're going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba, JSN higher than 47.5 receiving yards, which is fantastic because I'm going against the grain here. That's down from 49.5. People are taking the unders on him, the lower on him, and it's basically forced them to go down and whatnot, stop the bleeding a little bit. I'm going to go higher. I actually feel pretty good about this. Why? Jalen Naylor, Alan Lazard, Tutu Atwell have all found work and success against the 49ers, playing as an inside second receiver outside of Justin Jefferson. The main guy doesn't really hold up and ends up on lockdown. So I feel pretty good about the secondary receiver for whoever the 49ers play against. They seem to be able to get away with it a little bit more. So that's probably not great for DK Metcalf. Check his lines. I'd probably go lower anyhow. Maybe you could get away with some Tyler Lockett here as well. But JSN, he's been a little bit up and down. I'm going to back him to find that form after really that up and down start to the end. You know, seen him get 28 of 40 targets in 2 games. Think about that. 28 of his 40 targets, what's that? 60% of his targets have come in 2 games. And that's really not ideal considering we want a bit more of a consistent flux for him. It's just not there. He's only gone over 50 yards once this year, which again, kind of lends to the idea of this being a sucker bet, which is why everyone's going under on him or lower on him. But again, that bothers me a little bit because I feel like this is here for the taking, knowing that secondary receivers have a bit of luck against San Fran. Again, I would have told you wait and see where the line is come Thursday. I think that might creep down a little bit more. So if you are getting this information tonight, maybe have a look on JSN on Thursday to see where that is, because if he starts to come down a little bit more, you'd probably feel a little bit more secure. And I was feeling pretty good about this going higher anyway. So we're going to get a little bit more juice out of that. They're not going to swing that back up all of a sudden. If anything, they're going to hold still at 47.5. Pick number 2, though, we are going to go Brock Purdy. And we are going to go lower than 253.5 passing yards, which is fantastic because that's up from 251.5. So they've given us a couple extra yards. So again, going against the grain, which probably means I'm a bit of a dipshit. That's fine. I understand. It is what it is. But we get a couple extra yards buff. And again, if that's the way the trend is going, people keep going over and over and over and higher and higher and higher. They're going to keep raising that up. So maybe, once again, wait till Thursday to see where this tracks. That could end up being around 258, 259, and you might feel pretty good about going lower on that anyway. I feel pretty good about that now. Look, Purdy's had an okay start to the year. He's the guy there. That's cool. That's all well and good. He's been going over his quota, this quota of 252.5 in 3 out of his 5 starts. So he's done pretty good, while surprisingly going for about 300 yards per game on the road this year. He has kind of struggled in his form in his career at Seattle, though. He's never lost to the Seahawks. He's 4-0. So if that's something you want to take, Brock Purdy 4-0 against Seattle, that's pretty damn cool. And he's had a bit of luck with that in that regard. But, you know, he's never punched higher than 218 yards through the air on the road. So in terms of playing in Seattle, he doesn't actually have to do much. Why would he need to? Both time he had Christian McCaffrey doing all the work, he was going over 100 rushing yards, as it were, alone. So on the ground, Christian McCaffrey was absolutely smashing Seattle to the point where it was just kind of handing it off, and they were getting it done. So, you know, that kind of worked out well. I'm not sure much is going to change with the 49ers approach. Jordan Mason's been, you know, he's an incredibly viable option. He's been pretty good. And B, Tyrone Tracy of the Giants was slashing them for about 130 yards last week on the ground alone in his first start. So an unnamed running back can absolutely smash Seattle, I don't think Jordan Mason's going to have a problem doing that. I don't think the game plan for San Fran's going to change too much in that regard. So for me, with key injuries to a few key positions, obviously George Kittle in the ribs, Ayuk's been hit and miss. Jennings been in and out as well. Like his form was up. Ayuk started the weenie last week, big game. Samuel's kind of in and about as well. Injuries to a bit of the O-line. I kind of feel like this might be a game where Purdy goes into like that game management Alex Smith mode and eases his way through. And I don't see San Fran losing this week, but I think their way to go through Seattle, the Giants just laid the blueprint. Suffocate them and run the ball. And that's really what you have to do. And I could see Purdy going under or lower on his quota because of that principle alone. Speaking of Jordan Mason, we're going to go Jordan Mason. We're going to go a bit of an exotic bet here. Jordan Mason, higher than 17.5 yards as his longest rush and higher than 80.5 rushing yards. Jordan Mason has been a revelation this year for me with work, security, a bit of a viable option for the 49ers with Christian McCaffrey injured. I also feel like it's one of those last few weeks. I kind of feel like CMC, the talk about him coming and waiting through October is coming. So this might be one of the last few weeks you get the bet on Jordan Mason, and it's a fantastic game to bet on him with. Look, he's had 3 100-yard games on the ground this year and yet to go under 77. So he's having a few big weeks all year, 5 weeks in a row. So if you like him at 80.5, please feel free to jump on like I am. The Seahawks have conceded about 170 on the ground to the Patriots, 140 to Detroit, and 160 to the Giants in 3 of their last 4 games. So 80 yards for Jordan Mason, no other players behind him. I feel like it's a pretty good thing for him. They've also coughed up big plays too. So the longest rush play, it's in play. So I feel like that's in there as well. So if you want to see what it comes down, it hasn't yet over the last couple of days. So 7.5 is where it is. Tyrone Tracy had a 27-yard run. Gibbs had a 20-yard run. Achin not so much with a 13-yard run. Gibson with a 45-yard run. McLaughlin with a 15-yard run. So that's a few of the plays that have come up against a few of the running backs that have broken off for a few big plays. Jordan Mason himself has had a few big like that already this year. So I feel like that explosive play is there for the taking, and 17.5 for Jordan Mason is there to be had. I'm going to wrap this up quite nicely in a nice little bow, a nice little package, if you will. We're going to talk one more time about Thursday Night Football, 49ers at Seattle. But first, on behalf of Going42 Live, stick around for the Armchair Fantasy Show at 9 o'clock or 9:30, whenever Jess does. I'm normally asleep by the time he does it. I normally catch the show the next day because I'm an old fool. Doesn't matter. And as always, underdogfantasy.com, promo code GF2 for 100% matching deposit up to $250. As always, we're going to run through these picks one last time. Pick number 1, JSN Jackson Smith and Jigba, higher than 47.5 receiving yards. Remember, that's come down a couple already. Pick number 2, Brock Purdy, lower than 253.5 passing yards. Again, that's gone up, so we're taking the sucker bet on that, and I feel pretty good about it. Pick number 3, we're going to go double whammy on Jordan Mason. We're going to pick number 3, Jordan Mason, higher than 17.5 yards as his longest rush and higher than 80.5 rushing yards as it were. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for tonight's show. Cheers, safe bets, happy punts, and good